So I'm here today completing a topside oil change of my 2020 B9 Audi S5. Now, I bought this car last year when it had around 18,000 miles on it, and I've put about 5,000 miles on it. It's around 23,000, maybe a little bit over 5,000 miles. And this car generally calls for a 10,000 mile oil change maintenance. However, I'm a spirited driver. I've also done 2 track days on this car, and quite frankly, I do not like going more than 5,000 miles for an oil change on any car, regardless of the driver. So I'm gonna do an oil change here myself. In order to do a topside oil change, you will need a fluid evacuator. I have a Mighty Vac that's 2.3 gallons. I've done this on my wife's car with this, and it works pretty well. And so I'm gonna try it here on the Audi today. And I'll also take you inside to show you how you can reset the oil change interval on the trip computer. So let's quickly review what you will need in order to complete this oil change. Well, you're gonna need oil. The car calls for 0W20, fully synthetic. So I went with Liqui-Moly. I bought this off of FCP Euro. They actually had a deal that came with the oil and the oil filter in addition to the oil drain pan plug and washer. I won't need that because I'm not taking that out. I'm doing a topside oil change. You're gonna need some shop towels. You won't get a lot of oil in this one that you'll have to clean up, but when you take the filter out, you probably will get a little bit of oil that you want to clean up. Not as much as if you're doing it underneath the car. You'll need an oil filter, and then some tools you'll need is you'll need a 1/2-inch socket wrench, and then you'll need a 32-inch to take off the oil filter. It's quite large. I had to go buy this because I didn't have a 32-inch. You probably need a 1/2-inch extension as well, and then you'll need a torque wrench that can do 25 Newton meters to torque the oil filter back down. Now, my torque wrench that can do 25 Newton meters is a 3/8 inch, so I had to get an adapter in order to go from 3/8 to 1/2 inch to be able to use this, this socket. So those are the main tools that you will need. It's also good probably to just have some needle nose pliers and things like that, but these are the things that you have to have in order to complete this. Now, if your engine still has the cover on it, you'll need to remove the cover. So it's just held on by some clips, so you just kind of pry it up here from the front and then around back. It should come off pretty easily, and then that should give you access to everything you need. Okay, to get started, you'll need to remove the dipstick plug. Now, these cars don't have a dipstick. They have like an electronic dipstick, so this is just a plug that goes into the hole. So you take some needle nose pliers, you can just remove it, and that's really it. And then you can loosen the oil fill cap as well. So I loosen the oil fill cap, and then I'm gonna grab some shop towels just to put these things on so that I don't get oil all over the garage. So I'll put that there, put this here as well, and just put it in there. Now, you wanna drive your car around a little bit to make sure the oil is warm and circulating, especially if you were gonna check the oil before, if you had a dipstick in here. I did check mine internally, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And it's at the middle of the min and max. So it's right where it needs to be. So that's what you need to do first before we get the evacuator going. Okay, so onto the evacuator. I know this might look like a gaggle of hoses here, but you have this main hose that hooks into the evacuator. It shoves in, it's the larger hose. And then you have 2 other smaller ones. Let me lift this up real quick so I can get them off. And these are the ones that are gonna go down into the dipstick tube. Now there is a hose that is a little bit smaller and one that's a little bit larger. This one here is the larger one. I used the smaller one yesterday, and it really didn't work as well as I would like. It's just slightly smaller, but it honestly took a while to do my wife's car with the smaller one. So I'm gonna use the larger one here today because that looks like it's big enough. The dipstick opening is big enough to fit in there. So you just hook these together, shove this one here into this rubber piece. And actually I might need the other rubber piece here. You can see here the rubber piece has different size openings. So I'm going to take this off and put it on here, and that will be good for this larger tubing. There you go, and you can actually see the larger tubing on the inside. All right, so now that the tubing is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and shove it into the dipstick hole. Okay, so now we're going to shove this tubing here down into the dipstick hole. Kind of shove it and wiggle it as much as you can. Make sure you get into the bottom of that oil drain pan here. Yeah, there you go. Pull it out, push it back in. There we go. And that feels like it's pretty snug in there. Okay, now once you've done that, you're just going to want to pump this up. It has this little leg here that you can put your foot in to make sure that it's not there. And then the other thing to note here is on the side, there's a thing that will switch it between evacuation and dispensing. So right now it's in dispensing, so I'm going to, because I was emptying it, so I'm going to push it down into evacuation. So make sure that is pushed down into evacuation, otherwise it's going to push fluid back in rather than pull fluid out. And then you just start to pump it up. Also, this here is the cap that will allow the fluid to be poured out when you're going to empty it. So you want to make sure that's tightened down. You can see it's already coming out here. Let's just pump it around 10 to 15 times. Okay. And you can see the fluids coming here. Make sure that's in there. It's nice and hot. It's flowing pretty good. Now this has, like I said, 7 liters, I believe, of oil. So we're going to want to make sure that we look that it gets to the 7-liter mark here on the side of this. Okay, so while this oil is evacuating, I'm going to go ahead and loosen the oil filter. So that way it will release some of the pressure and drain some of the oil. I'm just going to shove, and it's pretty hot in here, so I'm going to put gloves on. But I'm going to shove just a towel down in there to make sure that I don't lose, that some of the oil doesn't get all over the engine when I loosen that oil filter. And occasionally you just need to keep pumping it and make sure you're getting whatever oil's in there out. We're not to 7 liters yet, so I know there's lots of oil left in there. And we're going to get our 32 millimeter, and socket and socket wrench. Set that to loosen. Loosen it. Okay, see it loosening up there? Okay, it's pretty loose. Okay, now I'm going to take the oil filter out and try to do my best not to mess up any of the other engine components. It is a tight fit here. Have a shop rag ready. Just kind of rest it on there. Looks pretty good. All right, just so you can see kind of what it looks like here, let me bring it back over. You can see this is what it looks like, the housing. So to take it out, you'll just want to pull it. It should pop out. Gonna turn and pull. There you go. And then you can look in here as well. Just see if you see any metal shavings. You might make it up into the oil filter, but it looks pretty good. So just wrap this up and throw it in the garbage. Okay, the other thing you need to do is you will need to remove this rubber O-ring here. It should slide right off, and there should be a new one in the packaging for the new oil filter. So if it doesn't come off, you might need to use like a screwdriver or something to kind of pry it over, because it is pretty slick, but make sure you do not damage the threads on the oil filter cap. Unfortunately, none of what I wanted to show you recorded, so I'm going to just take this out to kind of show you what I did here. But you'll need to put the new O-ring on and feed it over before you put the filter on. So the filter is out, and you want to get a little bit of oil on the O-ring, so just kind of stick your finger in here, get some oil on this, and then just feed it over and make sure you get it into the right groove. And then you just want to snap this on. I can actually take it off here real quick. So when you put it in, you'll kind of hear this nice click, and then you're good to go. And then I remove this kind of rag out of here after I was done putting it in. Just kind of slide it over nice and easy. Make sure you fit it, and then make sure you hand tighten initially, okay? Once it's snug, then you can go back in with your wrench. Now once it's snug, you can go in and just, it says 25 Newton meters in here. So before I get to that, I'm going to tighten it down. So I feel like it's starting to stop. Okay, from right there it's starting to stop, and then I'm going to switch over to the torque wrench. So just on the torque wrench real quick, this is Newton meters on this side, and you see I'm around, it's 20.4 plus 4, so right around 25. And then I'm going to go in here. Just make sure that we're okay. Okay, we're hearing the click, so we're good to go. So there are two other things that are helpful while doing this. One is a funnel, obviously, as you're trying to pour the oil in. The other is brake clean. If you get oil anywhere, brake clean is really good to clean up really anything in and around the car or the engine. I actually use this to clean the hoses out of the Mighty Vac, so that way there's not oil residue left in there. So I'll use this at the end here. But now I'm going to fill up the oil, and because I only took out 4.2 liters, I'm probably going to put 4.2 liters in and then check it and then see where it's reading inside the car before I do the rest, because it was a little concerning that only 4.2 liters came out, to be honest with you. All right, so we have, just double checking here, Top Tech 6200 SAE 0W20 long life motor oil, 5 liters. It is a little green, which is new for me, but because I've never used liquid moly before. That's my first time. I got the hat when I bought a racing helmet, and I'm used to engine oil being a different color. So glad it says motor oil in the bottle, because I would be a little bit concerned. Let's pour this out here.
So this is where I made my mistake. I'm pouring in brand new, fresh liquid moly, and there's probably still some existing oil in the engine. I just couldn't seem to get it all out with the evacuator. Now, my guess is that even though I was shoving the hose down to the bottom and it was touching the bottom of the oil pan, that actually was causing a problem because it was not leaving enough of a gap for there to be pulling oil out. I think it was like, you know, the hose was sticking to the bottom, and so it was just getting little bits of air pocket rather than lots of oil. Because when I put some liquid moly in and I pulled the hose up a little bit, all of a sudden it started flowing again. And when I shoved it back down to the bottom, it did the same thing where it was like sucking, but you're sucking a lot of air with it. It was making that slurping noise you would have when you get to the end of a milkshake and there's just a little bit left and you're trying to get it through the straw. And so I think you still need to leave a little bit of a gap at the bottom. Like you push it down and you feel it hit. After you've extracted the oil and you start to get those air bubbles, pull it up a little bit. And when I did that, all of the oil started to flow. So that was my mistake. Hopefully you don't make that same mistake and you'll be able to extract the full 7 liters. I eventually did pull 7 liters out, but I'm sure that it was a mixture of the old oil and the new liquid moly together that made up those 7 liters.
Okay, now that I've kind of figured out what was going on with the draining here, I've drained out about 7.2 liters and I've put in about 7.2 liters of liquid moly. I'm sure there was some mixing there, so I'm not getting the most perfect oil change, but absolutely it's way better than it was before. So the next thing you want to do is you want to put back your oil filler cap. Make sure that's snug. You'll also want to put back your plug here for your dipstick. Apparently you can also buy an actual dipstick for these cars if you want something that's not have to go into the car every time you check it. Okay, so everything looks good here. This has been tightened down to 25 Newton meters. Dipstick plug is back in. Oil filler cap is back on. I'm going to be a little bit annoyed that that's not facing the right direction, so I'm going to change that. And then the last thing you want to put on is your engine cover. So let me grab this. And snap that back in. Okay, so now we're good. We can go inside and check the oil level.
So once you get into the car, you'll need to hit the start button. Don't have your foot on the brake because it will start the car. And then go to the entertainment center and hit the home button and then go into vehicle. And then once you're in vehicle, you're going to go into service and settings. And then you'll go scroll down until you get to oil level and it will show you the oil level. Now to check the service interval, you're going to go back into the settings and service area and scroll up to service intervals. You'll see that it has my next oil change at 4,800 miles and the next inspection at 15,400. So that's where you can push the button to reset the oil change interval, and then it will push it back out for 9,400 miles. Now, I could have kept mine the same because I'm going to do it every 5,000 miles anyway, so you probably don't need to reset it, but if you want to, this is where it's at.
Okay, so what are my overall impressions on doing an oil change on the 2020 Audi S5, and especially doing a topside oil change using the Mighty Vac, which this is the second time I have done this. I did it on my wife's car yesterday. Overall, it's pretty easy. I would say it was on my wife's car. It took longer because I had used the smaller tube, but I knew I'd gotten all of the oil out of the engine. It was weird that I couldn't get all the oil out of the Audi, and I guess that's because I had actually pushed the tube too far down. So you need to leave a little bit of room there, and then once I started filling it up and I realized it had more than enough oil in it, I was able to go and extract the rest. But at that point, obviously some of the new oil had mixed with some of the old oil, so I doubt that everything in the engine is just new oil, but I know there's more. I put 7.2 liters of new oil in the engine, and it's not over the max, it's just really a little bit below the max, so I know that there's 7.2 liters of new oil in there, which is good. Or at least some combination of the 7.2 liters of new oil and a little bit of the old oil, which is fine. I'm good for that right now. Once again, the oil change interval is 10,000. I don't love those, so I'm gonna do it every 5,000. I do have a service coming up that I've prepaid for at Audi for them to do the 30,000 mile service on this car, so they will do the oil change at that as well, and that's in the next 6 months. So overall, I'm happy with it, but you can learn from my mistakes for sure. Definitely make sure you get that 7 liters out. Wiggle the hose, pull it up, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but make sure you kind of leave a little bit of room between the bottom of the tubing and the oil drain pan, and that will help you get the full amount of oil.